Originally, I learned how to code because I wanted to make games, and so I thought doing a software engineering degree would be a great way to get started.
I similarly found challenges with having more junior team members was definitely a challenge. We would specifically, for those teams, usually hire more senior just because.
When ChatGPT came out, I was also in that very skeptical camp of, haha, look at this, it's so dumb. You can't do maths properly, you can't count. A year later, and then I revisited it, and maybe this was ChatGPT 3.5, and I was looking at it. I was going, wow, this has changed so much in a year.
Welcome to another episode of AI Product Leader, where every week we shine a light on what it really takes to join the AI world. Real conversations with AI builders, founders, product leaders, AI technologists, and everything in between to understand where the world of AI is right now and what that path looks like, whether you're building AI products or a career in AI. I'm Polly Allen, your host, founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product leaders thrive in the world of AI and transition into AI roles. And I've spent my career on both the product management and software development sides of the fence. I'm an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa. I'm super excited to have our guest join us today. Daryl Teo is a technology strategist and a seasoned CTO who helps startups, scale-ups, and SMBs turn ambitious business vision into executable technical reality. He's led engineering organizations of up to 150 developers, guided product and platform strategy across multiple industries, and built high-performance teams known for strong culture and clarity. Currently advising companies as a fractional CTO, he's doubling down on AI-driven automation and transformation, bringing a rare mix of technical depth and business intuition into every mission. Daryl, thanks so much for joining us today. I've been super stoked to talk to you about today's conversation.
Likewise, Polly, thank you very much for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, as we just mentioned, you have a very impressive career in the technology space and have been working with AI, advising companies, and working as a fractional CTO, building real AI solutions. Before we dive into the AI side of things, so we'd love to get to know you a little bit better. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background before you really got into the AI space?
Yeah, sure. So I started out from uni doing a software engineering degree, and originally I learned how to code because I wanted to make games. I was very big into gaming, and so I thought, doing a software engineering degree would be a great way to get started. And once I got out of that degree, I went into consulting as a freelance contractor, and that's where I got to learn so much about uh, not only engineering and in terms of the full stack from database all the way to
Hmm.
front end, but also in the business side of things, where I got to interact with a lot of different enterprises, big and small businesses. So from there, that's really kind of like my inoculation to learning how to talk to non-technical people, and that was a very,
Mm,
I guess, strong period of growth for me.
yeah,
uh, Once I did that, I then chanced onto a startup that had a lot of interesting work. So that's where I got to grow a very small team of, I would say, very elite software engineers to,
nice.
to build a product and push a product vision. And that was, I potentially got my first taste of, leadership and engineering leadership and also team leadership
Mm, yeah.
and managing people as well. um, and then from there, that's when I went on to my next gig as the head of technology at a mobile application firm,
Mm,
and that's where I got to work with a lot of very smart individuals. And I guess that the very unique take on that was that the entire team was remote, so they were all based
mm,
in Southeast Asia.
yeah.
So that was my first taste of working with a very large team at a very at a very arm's length, where you
Right.
don't have the benefit of being seated next to say a junior and coaching them through things. So you're learning to apply changes at a wider scale using different levers instead of just doing things at the ground level. So that was a
Yeah.
a big changing moment for me as well. So now that I'm past that, now I'm going around as a fractional CTO to help businesses achieve their business goals, which is another chapter in my life to, start thinking more in terms of, what the business needs and what they're trying to achieve long term.
Oh man, that's quite the breadth of experience. Do you feel like you have a sweet spot that you prefer? Like, is it like I like really small, intimate teams. I like the bigger companies. Is there somewhere that you're like, ooh, this is the place where I know I feel like most at ease? The kinds of teams you like leading.
I think based on my experience, I naturally feel more comfortable in more agile environments. So
Mm,
way much smaller teams.
yeah,
And, I think I'm naturally a very impatient person, potentially, you know,
I
and
might resemble
that,
that
that can be
remark.
a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Yeah, and
So
in
I
bigger
always
and
want to
more
get
like,
things done really quickly.
yeah,
So with smaller teams with more agility, you're able to affect change that are,
yeah.
in terms of weeks rather than months.
Right, totally. Well, and of course, bigger companies are trying right now to adapt and make that part of their DNA as well, with everything moving so quickly. Absolutely. Before we move on to talking about AI, I did have a question about remote work because I spent a large part of my career working remotely in remote teams too. I love it. It's kind of my preferred way to work with engineering teams. Not that I'm an extrovert. I like to be around people, but um, I similarly found challenges with those teams that with junior people having more junior team members was definitely a challenge. We would specifically for those teams usually hire more senior just because that mentoring was such a challenge. Do you have any tips for anyone who does face that, like onboarding and taking on more junior team members, or do you find those situations do just work better with more experienced people on the team?
What I think here
Mhm.
is it's going to be very organizationally dependent
Uh, yeah,
on what they need to keep operations going.
yeah,
So from my own experience building, a mobile app agency, and it's primarily a services based industry. There is a pressure, obviously, to always deliver the highest quality that you can, and
hmm,
so there isn't as much luxury for hiring juniors and sort of building up that internal foundation of
yeah,
growth for individual developers. So I definitely share that challenge as well.
yeah,
As you relate it, you just don't have the capacity to bring on juniors and build a training program for them. It
right,
would have been something I would have loved to,
yeah.
but the overheads of that industry don't necessarily allow us to do that.
For that. Allow for to do for that, and, yeah, it's just more expensive because they can't just watch over your shoulder while you get stuff done the same way. Yeah, interesting. Well, regardless, we of course have similar challenges now with AI, and the whole idea of do we do how do more junior people get the experience to get the discernment? But I'd love to hear more about how you got into AI as someone who came from this deeply technical space. We were chatting before that when it first came out, you were very skeptical. Can you tell me more about that? Your first impressions, say 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, I was definitely one of the very skeptical members. I remember very early on, before ChatGPT was a different product. I think it was GitHub Copilot that first came out, and that
Mm.
was when they announced, "Hey, we've just consumed everybody's GitHub repos," without telling anyone. And here you go. This is a new coding agent that can do really quick snippets and, what was it? I think it was snippets and autocomplete essentially,
Mm,
you know.
yeah,
And that back then I was very skeptical of it, because, I think the outputs that were coming out from that were subpar at
yeah,
best, and it probably slowed you down having to rewrite it. And then when ChatGPT came out, I was also in that very skeptical camp of, haha, look at this, it's so dumb.
yeah.
You can't do math properly. You can't count, the number of R's in strawberry, all sorts
Right.
of things.
I love that one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it became very meme-like, where everyone, sort of loved laughing at ChatGPT.
Totally. It's
And
fun to dunk on ChatGPT.
exactly. And then, a few months later, or even like a year later, and then I revisited it, and maybe this was ChatGPT 3.5 probably,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
I was looking at it, and I was going, wow, this has changed so much in a year,
right.
and that's when I started feeling that tension where something is definitely happening and I've got to adapt to it. I've got to start making some changes to get on with the tide, rather than being swept away.
Wow, yeah. So what were your first steps? You're like, "Okay, I guess I have to get on board." What were your first steps in that case?
I think the first step is 100% a mindset shift. You really
Mhm.
have to have that mindset that you're going to accept it
Yeah.
and you're going to use it as a first step. You've got to say, I've got a problem that I want to solve. Instead of going, I would solve it this way. You got to start thinking in terms of from a, it's a bit cliche, but it's a AI first mentality. So you've got to say, all right, I've now have an AI as a tool that I can use, and I'm going to see what the tool can do in this situation. And that's ultimately going to be how I feel, beginners to AI need to kind of get into it, is to start
Yeah.
integrating it into their day to day. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be really big jobs, but it just needs to be a very consistent habit
Yeah.
and discipline to start integrating it into your daily life or into your workflows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so how it doesn't you didn't necessarily approach it from, like, a development perspective day 1? Were you just, like, getting used to using it as a tool, as a first step?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. Sorry, Polly.
Well, I mean, like, there's like, anyone can use ChatGPT to be like, plan your meals or whatever, right? Like, use it in your day-to-day usage versus as a developer, were there things that you were like, "Okay, if I need to be developing with this, what are the things I need to be doing?" Was it using more, like, tools like GitHub Copilot to develop code? Was it playing around with the APIs that are available? I guess my real question is, even for developers, is it important to get a sense of what these tools can do by using things like consumer products like ChatGPT? Is that a good place to start?
So for developers, I think it's definitely doubly important. It's kind of a form of dog fooding almost. If you look at
Yeah.
the people who are building these tools, they're all engineers. So they're the things that they're doing and the features that they're adding and the way that they're tuning these models is 100% being tuned to the area that they're the most familiar with, which is engineering.
Mhm.
So the the very first coding IDE was basically built by software engineers for their own work, right? With Cursor, you know, and they knew the problem space very intimately. We want to develop faster, and we want to know how AI can help us develop faster. And they built something that they thought would solve that problem for them. So for developers, I think you should be, if you're trying to get on board, you should be paying very strong attention to how these providers or how these products are trying to solve these problems, because they understand the
Mm.
problem space just as well as you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting from both a technical and a product perspective to look at them and go like, "Oh, why did they solve it like that?" Or would I solve it differently? What are their shortcomings? Absolutely. And I'd love to chat with about some of the things that you've been building with AI. You've implemented some voice integrations, some vendor management. I'd love to hear more about some of the projects that you have been using generative AI at the core of what you've been building with different companies.
Sure. So the way that I see AI in terms of how it's augmenting the workplace at the moment is essentially kind of in two areas. So one is either uh, helping to improve your current capability so that you can either deliver
Mhm.
something quicker or at a better quality. And the
Yeah.
other is in the area of giving you capabilities that you previously didn't have. And I know it's such an obvious use case. It's like the first thing that everybody grasps is call centers or contact
Right.
centers and support, phone support, all that kind of stuff. It's very obvious, but because when you think in terms of the capabilities that most businesses have, what you can hire people to do phone support, but most businesses at a smaller level don't have the capacity to do 24/7 support, right? So an
Yeah.
area where AI is already making massive impact is the fact that it's giving these businesses the capability to do 24/7 support where they previously could only offer support during business hours, or even
Yeah.
during a very thin slice of a time zone. So when I see something like this, it's such a easy value add to any business.
Mm.
And that's exactly what I recommended for a chain of laundromats, actually.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so it's a laundromat
Clear
chain, and
ROI
you can
every time with that use case, right? Every time it's very much like, oh, they're like, well, humans have to sleep and machines don't. Like it's just such a
exactly.
always a slam dunk. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
So it's very clear, ROI, as you say, right? People using these services 24 hours a day, but you don't have the budget to get a team doing that servicing 24 hours a day. And then when it comes to capability improvements, so one of the other projects that I've been working on is sourcing for inventory and pricing, up to date pricing for
Mm.
multiple vendors. So
Yeah.
if you've got multiple suppliers of inventory and you want to quickly find the best prices, previously you would have, potentially have had to individually go to each one and log into their trade portals and try to find the right parts and the equivalent parts across different vendors. And
Yeah.
sometimes these vendors don't have APIs for you to consume as well. They don't want to
Mhm.
reveal that information. So you find yourself having to manually go through and find these. And you're if the deal process is very time sensitive and you need to be really quick in that process, saving 3 to 5 minutes in a deal making stage can be potentially increasing your conversions
Mhm.
by 20-30%, let's just say,
Wow.
right? It makes a
Yeah.
massive difference. So with that, we can using AI to kind of go to these vendors and quickly getting the right prices for you and finding the equivalent parts across different vendors
Yeah.
and different suppliers. That's been a massive impact.
Massive impact, amazing. Do you have a favorite tool stack you like to work with? I'm thinking especially you were doing voice agents for customer service. Are there particular tools you'd recommend after having actually implemented these things?
No, I don't want to be like I'm not getting paid, so there's no
Right.
affiliates. I'm not getting any
Mhm.
kickbacks for it.
Exactly.
The one that I'm currently using is retail, and I think primarily it's just the first tool that I came across.
Oh, okay.
And it did have features at the time, very early on, where I could see the value in having those features, and therefore that's why I use those.
Okay. Okay, cool. Sorry, retail it's called?
Yes, retail.ai.
Okay, interesting. Very cool. And do you have a favorite, like, programming tool, favorite, code agent that you like to work with?
Oh, so for coding, honestly, I am subscribed to both Claude Code
Uh-huh.
and Codex, and I also
Oh,
do have the Cursor subscription as well.
you can't pin this guy down. He won't be pinned down to one environment, to one agent. Is there a reason do you, like, find there's, like, certain things you like to do better in one, or you just like having more credits? Or how do you think about what tools you use for what?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting point. oftentimes when I'm talking on various communities, and I hear people complaining about how a model is degraded, or how I
Mm,
think at the time of recording, Codex GPT 5.1 was literally just announced at the time of recording a few hours
yeah,
ago,
yeah,
and people are raving about how much better it is and how much more accurate it is. The funny thing for me is, from my personal experience, I almost don't see a difference. So it
oh,
could
really?
be that potentially the size of the projects are different. As a you know as s- let's just say I'm not working on any long term, huge code bases as a permanent staff member.
Right.
I'm more doing really quick prototypes and one shots. So
Yeah,
for my personal experience so far, I haven't really gotten to a point where I noticed that one model is significantly better than the other.
probably better than the other.
And
Yeah.
the business value that I'm achieving with either any of these tools are equivalent, right?
Okay.
So I think it's for me, having all these tools is just making sure that I'm on top of the progress that everyone is making, and noticing whether there are any trends that are happening that that could potentially pull the ecosystem in a particular direction, because it's
Improve.
such a valuable thing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That makes total sense. And I ask because it's a bigger and bigger question. Product managers are being asked increasingly to go, further and further down the tech stack. Many of them are exposed to like lightweight prototyping, code generation tools, but more and more are like, I want to actually learn how to use these tools that coders are using. It's interesting to hear there's no like clear winner in your mind of like you should absolutely go with A versus B, because it sounds like they're pretty similar in terms of functionality, and you might only run into the limitations in like large code bases or certain edge cases. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. So if I was to, recommending to a product manager, I would say just aim for for just quickly delivering value,
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
than thinking so much about, which tool is the best for the job.
I love it. Move fast. That's the startup the startup lover in you. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Daryl. I think to close out, I'd love to hear if you were to boil down your advice to anyone getting into AI for the first time, where should they start if you were to boil down that advice to one sentence?
I think from my own experience, the best thing I can recommend for people is lean in and commit.
Love it. Lean in and commit. What does that look like day to day? Like, is it yeah, how does that person say, "Okay, I'm gonna lean in and commit." What would they do if that shows they're doing that?
And for me, it means that you are actively treating a AI or LLM, whatever you want to call them, but treating them as a solid partner, and
Mm,
treating them as almost like an equal,
yeah,
and taking their output seriously, but with a very healthy filter of skepticism, to make sure that
mm,
what you're getting something that's correct, but
yeah,
still, like I said, just giving them the first opportunity to help you in your day to day.
perfect. Yeah, that's so true, right? That I think there's line between skepticism and, "Oh, okay, but you are still a colleague." Just a colleague, I'm just not gonna believe everything you say, or like, it's not a superior. Or someone telling you what to do, right? You can always question it. I think that's fantastic advice. You really got to like embrace it as a colleague. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic. We're down to our last section, which is plugs. Is there anything you'd like to plug? If people want to get a hold of you, how should they reach out?
Sure. Yes. So I'm currently providing, advisory, fractional CTO advice to, as Polly mentioned very early on, a variety of startup, scale up, small business. So if you want to have a quick chat about the problems that you want to solve in your business, either through gaining better efficiency or finding other opportunities for revenue, please just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. We'll include that in the show notes too if you want to connect with Daryl. Excellent. Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate the conversation. This has been fascinating, Daryl. I love seeing the inside of like a CTO's mind, especially someone who's seen such a breadth of different kinds of teams and different kinds of use cases. So we really appreciate you sharing all your advice with us today. Awesome. Well, that's another episode of AI Product Leader. Hope to see you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.